So Ryan, thank you so much for joining me.
No problem, Finley. Thank you for inviting me, mate. Looking forward to it.
Absolute pleasure to have you. Could you just kick us off and tell us a bit about your background and what you do today?
Sure. I'm Ryan Mack. I'm from a little town outside Glasgow called Cumbernauld. Your typical council estate guy, left school at 15, joined the army, got out the army, done coast protection, worked on the pylons. Now I live in Indonesia. I trade currency and I am a sponsored YouTuber.
Mate, that is
random.
Mate, that is a real evolution. And you've cut down like what I can see online is like the most exciting life into about 30 seconds or 20 seconds. Yeah. So like what did you do in the army?
I was a forward observer. So I've done 4 years in the reserves, Argyll and Southern Highlanders, which is infantry. And then I left. Some people join the regular army, get out, and then join the reserves. But I could have done it the opposite way, where I joined the TA reserves, left that, and then I joined the regular army. So I've done 4 years in the Argyll and Southern Highlanders reserves, and then I got out and I joined the regular army artillery as a forward observer.
And what does a forward observer do?
So in the artillery, you obviously know you have the big guns, as they call it, the artillery shells that come in. So for those bombs to come in, you need someone who's on the front line with the infantry. You have to be side by side with the infantry to then call in those bombs. And then when they land, you have to work out, okay, you have to come 100 meters to the left, 200 meters up, and guide it on for the actual target.
Wow. So you're right at the sharp end of any forward attack, really.
We are, mate. Yeah, we're in with the infantry. We're always a part of an infantry platoon, section, company.
Okay, now and so you're in the army for how long?
4.5 years regular.
Okay, and you did tours. You went out to Afghan. You went to Iraq, and
yeah, with Iraq, I've done close protection in Iraq, but I didn't do any military tours of Iraq. But when I was in as a forward observer, I'd done 2 frontline tours of Afghanistan. I'd done Herrick 10 and Herrick 15. Herrick 15, by that point, I was just literally handing out sweets. I don't even think I fired a single bullet. I really didn't. Wow. Everything had changed. There was no point, in my opinion, in a forward observer even being there, because even if you wanted to fire illumination in the air, there's a carrier shell. So when the illumination bomb goes off in the air to kind of essentially send down a flare and a parachute, the metal shell that carried it flies on. And obviously, if that hits you, it's going to take your head off. You know what I mean? So it's called the carrier shell. And you have to take that into account. So by Herrick 15, they weren't even letting me fire illumination. So, I mean, I was just an infantry body at that point. I didn't do my job at all.
Yeah.
Herrick 10 was like the most kinetic, if I'm not mistaken. Herrick 10 was like the bloodiest battle, or the bloodiest kind of tour that the British Army have seen since like World War II days. If you remember, that's the one where the Welsh Guards CO got killed. He was on his way to my checkpoint. Like the guys, the Welsh Guards, that the platoon that I was with, called the Jam Boys, they had went down and caught Obama, like they essentially checked for like IEDs and stuff on the road, and it was all clear, and then they came up. But the Taliban they were quite smart. Previously, they were using like metal, so that when you stepped on the pressure plate, the metal would touch and it would go bang. But our metal detectors essentially picked that up. So the Taliban are quite smart. What they had started doing at that point, instead of using metal, like when we had GPSs and night vision goggles, we would just lob our batteries away. They'd started collecting our batteries and stuff and burning, or even just using their own batteries, but we were told they were collecting our batteries, burning them to get like the carbon fiber rod out of them or something like that. And then they were using those rods, whatever it is that's in a battery, to use as detonated device, so you can't find that on the thing. So that was why when the lads checked it, obviously it wasn't their fault. It just didn't show up on the the metal detector.
Wow, that's super smart. Like, and so what, you were just chucking these little batteries like on the ground around the place, and they would find them.
Yeah, literally, if we were out, mate, and our Garmin GPS needed batteries, we were just lobbing them, and then later on, if they were coming in, they were just picking them up. We didn't think anything of it,
Fucking hell, that's so sly, isn't it?
It's probably bad drills, mate. Yeah. Probably supposed to take the stuff with you, so yeah, that may have been bad drills on our part, but that was what we were told was happening.
So after your time there, you went to work in close protection in the oil fields, and obviously oil has this huge horrible political connotation with the whole war and everything. So we'll stay away from that for a little bit. But
Yeah.
in terms of what's the realities of close protection in an oil field?
That was actually probably the most boring close protection job I've ever done, if I'm being honest. Really, the better close protection job, the first contract I ever got, was I had a mate who was ex like TA, SAS. He was a lot older than me. I was like 24 or 25 at the time. He was like 40 odd, but I had known him since I was a kid. And he mailed me when I was on my second tour. I was in Camp Bastion about to come home, and he's like, "Are you getting out?" And I says, "I'm thinking about it, mate. I'm a bit snapped." He's like, "Do you want to do CP?" And I was like, "Oh, mate, everyone on a dog does it. I'm not spending $5,000 and then to get the license and the course, and then you're not guaranteed a job." And he's like, "No, I'm a project manager." He's like, "I'll give you a job." And I was like, "No shit." So that's what happened, mate. I then got back to the UK, and at that point, the British Army was dying to get rid of lads. So if you wanted like early resettlement and get out, as long as you could prove that you had a job, a letter of employment that they would email to the RCMO, then they would let you out. So I literally got out of the army within a month, and I was like, "Oh, great, I didn't have to wait the year." And then I went out to Afghanistan. That was on like an American contract. I was in, what's the bloody base called again? It's the one with the plane crash. Bagram. I was in Bagram Air Base. So I would go from the UK, fly to Dubai, Dubai to Kandahar, Kandahar to Bagram, like that. And then my first gig wasn't actually close protection. It was like looking at the American base had all these watchtowers all around it, right? These old kind of Air Force towers. And what they would do is they would just fill it up with Gurkhas, not British Army Gurkhas, but like Nepalese Indian Army type Gurkhas, you know?
Yeah. Why was that?
So it was just cheap labour, mate. They would pay them like $1,000 a month as like, pardon me, private security guard.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was it. So you might think cheap, $1,000 a month, but these guys were literally on like, I think when you worked out their yearly salary compared to what they got back home, it was like it was something ridiculous, like 12,000 times their salary, or maybe even 120,000 times their normal salary. I can't remember, but I just remember it was like mind-blowing.
So it was a gold rush for them.
It was a gold rush for them, mate. They were all going home after doing it for 3 years. I mean, they didn't get leave. They were literally in there for 3 years, but they were going home and they were like buying their own like truck haulage companies and all that, you know. So it was really good for those guys. They got treated really well. They got good American food and all that from the scran houses. So they get treated really well. That was my first gig.
So what were you? What was your role in there then?
Yeah, so I just used to teach them first aid, weapon handling skills. We would teach them about security, how to search people, how to search vehicles. Because in the mornings, Afghanis would come onto base to work, so that there would be hundreds of them coming in. You know, they all had kind of IDs and blah blah blah. But you would just be able to tell them how to spot someone that didn't look right. You know, look, he's sweating. You know, Afghanis don't really sweat. Yeah, it's hot, but they don't sweat like you or I. You know, this guy's profusely sweating. He shaved his head. You know, all these things are abnormal.
Why would that be? Why would they be sweating though? Suicide
bombers. So they're just getting worried. You know, the nerves start to go. They shave their head. It's like, I don't know if it's some kind of thing to their god or whatever, but they shave their head to be like clean and fresh and all this kind of stuff before it. And then they would like just be sweating buckets if they started getting nervous. Some of them would be thinking, "Oh, I don't want to do this," but it's too late. You know.
Did you see any? Did any actually come in and you were like, "That's obviously a suicide bomber"?
I actually never saw any. A couple of the guys, the Gurkha guys, like they've had a couple of rounds of guys who had came to the base and that, etc. a couple of times, but they never got onto the base because there was obviously American units there as well. We were just like the kind of initial front line, so Americans didn't have to stagger on the towers. You know, that's essentially all it was. But what I did see there, you can even see it on YouTube right now. It was literally, I could see it in front of my eyes. I had just bought a coffee from the Starbucks. And I was driving down the main drag in Bagram, and as I looked out my car, there was this big, massive aircraft that went up in the air. It literally paused in mid-air like this, and then it just went like that and flipped around and hit the deck, and the whole thing just exploded. So apparently, my apologies if this information is wrong in its entirety, but what I'd heard was it was a cargo plane. and one of the straps had snapped, so all the cargo had fell to the back and just literally pulled the plane down, and
wow,
crew members died. But I mean, I saw that right in front of me. That was pretty nuts.
That's crazy. It's almost like it just stalled in midair and then.
Yep. And it just a plume of flames. I mean, it was unreal. You can see it on YouTube now. I think if you type in Bagram airplane crash or something like that, you'll see it.
That's crazy though. All of that millions of pounds of technology and everything is reliant on one strap. one strap.
I know, mate. I know.
Fucking hell. Someone's in trouble for that.
I know. And the thing is, these straps are super, super strong, because even when I then worked on the pylons for a while, you could hang heavy weights on like tiny little bits of rope, so I mean, that it's super, super strong, these things.
Yeah,
somebody must have seriously messed up.
That's crazy. So how long were you working out there?
I'd done that for about 1.5 to 2 years, mate.
Okay, and then you went and worked on, when you say the pylons, that's like electricity pylons?
Yes. So then when I kind of had enough of that type of job, and I had a missus and stuff back home, and she was snapped, and anyone that's been in the army knows what it's like, or done close protection, you've always got a missus nagging you and busting your balls to get a job at home, get a normal job, So my good mate Daz Lowe, I'll never forget it, he's ex-army as well. He was a tankie. He was in the tankies for about 12 years, 2 RTR, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Him and my other mate Mark, they worked in Balfour Beatty, and they were like, yeah, mate, we'll get you in, because apparently the pylons is like, you only get a job if you know people that are working in the gangs. That's just how it's always worked. Everybody can apply, but the unwritten rule is you ain't getting a job if you don't know someone who's in. That's how it works.
Is that because it's like super coveted and like, it's good pay and it's like danger money and all of that stuff?
I think it's that, mate. I think it is really good pay. I mean, Daznat got me in, so I went home, done an interview, and actually then flew back to Afghan to continue working. I done it my month off, and I flew back because the job wasn't going to start till like March, and this was already like November. So I was like, yeah, I'll just go back to Afghan until then. And then, I mean, 10 minutes after the interview, Dad's like, yeah, mate, you've got the job, it's fine, but you won't be told until about February, but I can tell you now you've got it. So I was like, sweet, mate. And yeah, when I went back, let me tell you something, the money in the pylons is phenomenal. The guys get super pay, and they're looked after in way of tax, because as a trainee, I didn't even know how to tie a piece of string together, like, the way they wanted it. And you were clearing 50 grand a year after tax.
Wow.
And it was because the way they done it. So if you got all that money in terms of, wages, like an hourly rate, yeah, you're going to walk home with half of that. But where you made your money was they would give you like living expenses and allowances and for digs and blah, blah, blah. And they would give you tons of money that way, which is not taxed. So that's how you then made up all your money. So they were quite good at looking after you that way.
And where was this? This was in the UK at that stage, obviously.
Yes, mate. That was on a huge new project called the Bule line that went like from the top of Scotland all the way through Scotland, and it was horrific. And this was funny. I remember I went to Derby for the Balfour Beatty Centre, and like we're climbing on the practice big massive towers and all that there, but obviously there's no electric in those ones. And the training staff, most of them are all ex-army as well, the guys that are there. And I remember the guys like acting me, what was it? It started raining, and they're like, right, it was like a panic. Everyone down from the tower. And I was like, what? Yeah, you can't climb the towers if it's raining. I was like, what? I mean, mate, I'm going to be working in Scotland, so like we're never climbing a tower.
It's always raining
every day in Scotland. Like, this is impossible. And then I realised, yeah, it's just like every other firm. They have to do the whole health and safety. But when you get there, like if you're scratching your eye, the health and safety guys at the bottom of the tower screaming, "Get your glasses back on!" You're like, I'm scratching my eye, mate. But when it's like 40-mile-an-hour winds, the snow's coming in sideways, and you're swinging on the fucking dishes trying to put the wire in, there's like no health and safety guys around that day, which is oddly enough.
How high up are you at this stage?
Oh, mate, all towers are different, but I mean, some of them are a good 100 meters plus. They're huge. They are huge.
You're not shitting it up there?
Well, the thing, I've done loads of stuff in the army, mate, that kind of built my confidence with that way, And then when you do the training side of it with Balfour Beatty and Derby, their training's fantastic, the facility. They make you do confidence tests, so they make you like go up, they make you like wrap the rope. That you've got so many different ropes and clip-ons and all that, and then you've got one for working. So you'll clip this one around you, and then they make you lean off the tower and put your hands back and and they say your name, and all that, and and then okay, back up, and then you come back up. So it reminded me of the military,
Yeah,
you
I
get the
bet.
confidence test. So by the time you get to the tower, you're okay.
Yeah, I bet you've got to be. It takes a certain sort of mindset to even enter into that, because you see it, and I'll see these guys when I'm driving down the motorway or something, and like this guy just fucking 200 feet up or 100 meters up, and I'm like, that's probably not for me. Or even cleaning the sides of the buildings and stuff that you see guys with those like high rope
with
stuff.
the rope. Yeah, that's right, mate. That's right. There was some lads that didn't go on with the heights. I only one or two, but it is high when you're up there, and it's not just the height. It's not like going up a ladder in your house. It's the weather. It's the wind and all that. Like when you're up, sometimes you're swinging and you're like, it's a tiny boat, and all you have to do is tighten it. You think it's easy, but the whole time you're trying to do it, and like your whole core is just, it's agony. You're like, ah, you need to hold on, and you go, quick breather. Wow. Right back, and then there's 3 guys at the bottom with trying to hold the wire up, because the wire weighs an absolute ton. It's all these little things that you don't realize when you're driving by the tower.
How long are you up there doing that? Like, do you have to do just 1 hour at a time, or like you could be there for 5 hours? Or it's
coal mine or graft. I mean, look, we're probably talking about 9 years ago or something. I've done this 9-10 years ago, but it is coal mine or graft. Like when you go in the morning, the bosses were all old school. They'd be like, I hope you've had a good breakfast, boys, because you won't be coming down today. And you're like, that's what it was like, mate. They were all old school kind of miners. They were all hard bastards, the old guys.
Yeah, I bet.
And the thing is, when you're going up, you get these flimsy little gloves, because they can't be too thick, because you have to be able, you need the dexterity to be able to feel the nuts and bolts and what you're doing, Excuse me. But yeah, I remember going up there and people would just have like their tool bags full of Snickers, because they're like, yeah, you just ain't coming down. You might be up for a couple of hours. If the snow's really bad, you might be up for 4 or 5 hours. Then they'll let you come down, get a brew on, get your food, and then, back up. But yeah, the health and safety with the weather and that, yeah, it didn't exist when I was there.
Brutal. So that was 9 years ago. Let's fast forward a little bit. And then you took the obvious segue into trading Forex. How did that happen?
I'll take a step back, mate. So what happened was when I was working in the pylons, I'd been there for about 1.5 years. And I mean, look, maybe you've got viewers maybe you've experienced it, maybe you have viewers that have experienced it, but I got to the stage in my life, yeah, you can say it's 50 grand a year, it's fantastic money, it's like $1 a week, but I got to the stage in my life, pardon me, I was literally waking up in the morning, 4:30, 5, getting ready for work, and I just hated my life. I remember it plainly, like it was yesterday. I was sitting on the edge of my bed and I thought, this can't be my life for the next 40 years. We were working 17 days on, 3 days off. You didn't get 3 days off, because one day would be you driving home, washing all your gear. So that's that day lost. The second day would be a day off. The third day would be you repacking your gear and dreading going back to work the next day. So you didn't get downtime.
17 days on?
Yeah, and 3 days off.
Fucking hell.
So it was a slog. So I was just like, I just hated my life. So what happened was, I was still going to hack. I was going to stick with it though. I didn't have any other plans to get out of it, because it was good money. I thought there's nothing else going to pay me this way. I went to Greece on a family holiday, my sister's birthday, and when we came back from it, the Balfour Beatty were essentially having a clean out, and they were like, yeah, if you've ever dipped a shift and done this and done that, you're getting binned. If you've been in the longest, you stay. If you're brand new to the company, you're probably going to get made redundant and binned off. And I was still a trainee at this point. I thought, no, my mate Dad's like, me, trainees are getting canned. I thought, you're joking, because the contract was getting nearer to an end, so there's going to be more losses. They don't need trainees, they need the guys. So I thought, no. So I put the feelers out, and I just put a post on Facebook. I was like, lads, look, I might be losing my job in Balfour Beatty in the pylons. If I'm going to do anything else, I want to get work back in the sand. I mean, I've still got my SIA license, still qualled up, blah, blah, blah. Is there anyone, can put a good word in for me?
When you say back in the sand, that's going back out to Afghan or Iraq and doing close protection.
Exactly, mate, yeah. It means close protection work, really. People call it the sand, the circuit, whatever. But it all means the same thing. And this guy mailed me instantly. So can I backtrack slightly? When I was in Afghan, our company was looking for lads, and a guy that I didn't know, I knew a guy called Baz Aspinall from Seven Para, and he had a mate who I didn't know, but it was obviously Barry's mate. He's like, look, my mate's been dying to get to CP, he just can't get his foot in the door, will you square him away? I went, mate, I'll gladly square him away. And I did, and he got offered the job, but he had kind of problems at home back then, and he didn't take it. But if you now want to fast forward, after his kind of family trouble had got out the way and solved, he then got into coast protection. And when I put that post on Facebook, even though we're on Facebook for 2 years together, we didn't really talk much. But he DM'd me right away, mate. Martin, his name was. He DM'd me right away. He's an I think he was Grenadier Guardsman or something like that. And I was like, mate, I know we don't speak much, but I've never ever forgotten you squared me away when you didn't even know me. He's like, just to let you know now, I'm now a manager over in the CP. In Iraq, he's like, I've just taken over this new company starting up. He's like, I'll give you a job. I can have you out here on Wednesday.
What goes around comes around.
That is the karma train,
Karma.
I just thought, oh, Martin. So I then, before I even got sacked, I then left that job and went literally a week later. It turns out I wouldn't have got sacked because I was someone who never ever dipped a shift. I even roasted my hand one night with cooking oil, prepping my meals for the pylons. I spent the whole night in A&E because it was a really, really bad burn. And I still turned up to my shift the next day late, all bandaged up. So I never ever dipped the shift, and it turned out I wouldn't have got sacked. But anyway, that's how it was. So I then went to Iraq, mate, and then coming on to the Forex. I then went to Iraq just with I ended up with this awful company as we moved on. Like, you were working for 3 months and you were getting the first month's pay, and you were getting half of it, and you're like, what? I've been here for 3 months and I've picked up $1,800. This is not normal, it should be about 6 or 7 grand. This is not normal. So that was a disaster, mate. And I thought, oh no, obviously everyone was in the same boat. The company was called Al Gadir. That was about must be 9 years ago. And I'm still on their bloody website. If you check the website, me and my mate Al, who's the next Roman, I was like, you cheeky bastards, you didn't even pay me, and I'm still on your fucking website.
Fucking hell, I'm playing you.
So when me and Al, the reason why that job was boring, you were just a taxi driver, mate. You weren't doing the actual coast protection. You would pick clients up, take them to BP. They would go inside, get swimming pool, steak and ice cream. You would sit in your car for 8 hours, 12 hours, this is.
So these are just BP or oil execs who just need to have someone babysitting them, really.
That's exactly it. And I'd done that for a few months, and I just thought, right, again, this life ain't for me. I just can't be sitting in my car for the rest of my life.
You think that would be well paid, though?
It used to be. I mean, nowadays, I think guys get between 4,000 and 6,000 USD a month. Still not that much for giving up you're giving up your freedom. You ain't getting any home to you. They do 8 weeks on, 4 weeks off. For me, it still isn't worth it, because you're 4 weeks off, you don't get paid. So let's say you've made 8 grand, you have to divide that 8 grand by 3 months, not by 2 months. So it's not worth it, in my opinion. You can make more if you're really good at sales. And Arnold Clark, you can make more than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. There was a chance that there was a job offer out to go and work in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, being a personal trainer or a health coach to, I don't know, some Saudi prince somewhere. And, but you're on the site the whole time for you live there, and it was 50K a year, but you live there, you're on the compound, you have to basically ask to go out, get a driver and go out somewhere. So for that much, sacrifice of life, it's not worth it overall. It's not worth it. Exactly. So anyway, so from there, when you were doing that, you thought, right, that this is not for me after a few months, and then where did you go?
Yeah, so I then started looking for jobs, and at the time, obviously, my missus was pounding me again. This isn't working out because being away, you need to get home. And I was like, anyone who's been in these jobs knows what it's like. Women talk shit all the time. So I was like, so I started looking for jobs back home, and my mindset at the time was, I don't want to look for a job, for example, where, okay, the salary is 25 grand. It doesn't matter how poorly I work or how amazing I work, and 25 grand is going to be my bottom line. That's just a random number, but you know what I mean? I didn't want it to be that. I wanted to, if I put in the effort, I get paid more. So that was sales, right? I thought, right, let's start looking for sales jobs, because then I can smash it, and my income is up to me, if I'm not lazy. So, mate, I applied for tons of jobs. Arnold Clark, Peter Vardy, kitchen sales, window sales, biomass sales, solar panel, you name it. And I saw this one that said business development manager, Southeast Asia. And I was reading the things, and it says, it just said fine. It didn't say Forex or anything particular. It just gave you a little kind of snippets, like the finance world, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Looking through it, I thought it might have been a kind of, insurance sales type thing. I wasn't sure. So when I looked through it, it said minimum 3 years business development experience, blah, blah, blah. But then it said, like, we give you the training, we give you that, we give you this, full training provided, we pay your flights, accommodation. I was like, what? I was like, well, full training provided, they're going to tell me everything anyway. So what I essentially done, mate, was I have mates who were in sales and business development and all this. So I deleted like I deleted 4 years, so it looked like I had a little bit more. I deleted the last 4 years of my CV, and I just put my mate's life on my CV as if I'd done this. And I was watching videos on YouTube, like, what is a gatekeeper? What is a lead? You know, and all this mad stuff. And I applied for the job randomly. And this is crazy. So if you want to know, you know, the real part of my life at that point, I had then broke up with the missus that I came home to be with, you know, it's like sod's law. And instead of being like I had at that time when my life was going well, mate, I had an Audi TT, she had a car, we had a 5-bedroom bungalow, blah, blah, blah. And then obviously we broke up, and it was just like my whole planet just went against me. Jobless, fucking, we broke up, kicked out the house. I was like, this is brutal. I had the car companies calling me, credit card companies calling me, banks calling me, mate. It was just the worst part of my life. I'm happy to admit I was in the hot locker. And I was just like, how did this happen to me? Like, literally a year ago, I was buying a new Audi TT in a 5-bedroom house. You know, I was like, how did this happen?
Complete reversal.
Reversal, mate. And I remember watching, just kind of backtracking slightly, Mike Tyson, and he's like, look, mate, he was talking to someone else and said, I was worth 150 million at one point, and I was bankrupt and homeless. You know, he's like, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody, you know? So it gave me a little bit of light. But anyway, fast forward again, I applied for that job, and about 6 or 7 weeks went past, and by this point I was in the turbo hot locker. I was like sleeping on my sister's couch and everything. And I remember this morning like anything, mate. I was sitting there, my hold all my clothes was at my feet, and I had my feet rested on top of it. And I remember I put my head in my hands, and I honestly said this, how the hell did this happen to your idol? And the next minute, mate, my phone just started going and I looked at it, right, and it was a Hong Kong number, and I thought, fuck off, Hong Kong. and at that time there was this scam apparently going around where people would call you from like a Mexican number and all that, and it'd be like a hotline, but it'd be charging you like $30 a minute. And I was like, oh, this is going to be one of those scams. And do you know what I said to myself, mate? I said, you know what? I don't even have 30 quid to pay anybody, so they literally can't scam me. And I answered it, mate, and I was like, hello, is that Roy? And I was like, yeah, do you remember you applied for a job in Southeast Asia, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I remember it. I mean, who's not going to remember applying for a job?
What was the time scale between the application and that call?
It was about 6 or 7 weeks, mate. That's why I had lost hope. I thought, yeah, they've just chinned me off. They've looked at my CV and blew me off, you know. And this guy called. I was like, mate, I remember it. And I'm trying to act like I'm not in the hurt locker and not desperate for this opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, act cool. Act cool.
Yeah, act cool. Don't drink coffee. And so then, yeah, we're talking about that. And then, so I went through we had the telephone interviews twice. We had Skype interviews. I had to do like a sales, what do you call it? Like a psychometric test based on sales and all this bollocks. It was quite a long process.
They didn't quiz you on that last bit of your CV, did they?
Quizzed me on everything, mate. Everything. So luckily, I had called my mate who's in sales, and I was literally like, mate, what's a lead? He's like, this is a lead. How many do you get? How do you get them? Do you have to chap those yourself? Does your company give you leads? You know, I mean, I grizzed them. How much do you get per? How much does it cost you to sell a product? How much commission do you get per deal? Mate, I had grizzed this guy because we always say in the army, failure to prepare is preparing to fail, right? So I had prepped for everything. And that was really because I was applying for all sales jobs. So it wasn't this particular one. I wanted to prep myself in case I got interviews for any sales job, you know? So that's why I went those kind of lengths. So yeah, they grizzed me on all of that, mate, and I got through it, and I ended up coming over. So when you come over, they trained you in a office. So I ended up getting the Jakarta office, and there was loads of people in training. At the end of training, they then send you either Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan. You know, they've got offices everywhere. But they would get you at the end of training to put down your preference. And I was literally the only guy. Like, I don't care where you send me, just I'll go anywhere. And because no one else had put Jakarta, they were like, yeah, you want to stay in Jakarta? I was like, I'll stay here, mate, no problem at all.
Why was that unpopular? Why was Jakarta unpopular?
Compared to other Asian cities like Ho Chi Minh, Singapore, Hong Kong, and so on. Like, I mean, you can't just walk down the street. The gym's a kilometre away. You can't walk to it because the pavements are, if there is a pavement, there's a massive tree like every 2 feet. So you have to go on the road, back up on the road. There's traffic everywhere. The pollution is crazy. It's just like, it's not desirable. I love living here, but it's not desirable if you have other options. I'd never been in these other places. A lot of these guys had, oh man, I'm going to Singapore. Singapore's the bollocks, you know, and blah, blah, blah. I'd never experienced Asia. So like, this was my first time. I was like, I love it here. This is fine. Yeah. The people are super friendly. Like, you walk in the mall, people are like, hello, mister. Want to make a photo? He's like, can I get a photo? You're like, what the fuck? It's just mental, you know? So yeah, I just love the people, love the food, and I didn't mind being in Jakarta because I didn't know any better, you know.
Epic. So then they said, okay, right, you've got the job, and then you started working immedially. And
then I started working. Yeah, so it's funny going through training. They were like, yeah, so if the client says this to you, then if the client gives you an objection, then hit him with a rebuttal with this, that, and then go back in again for the deal. And so when I was asking questions, did anyone have any questions? I was like, yeah, me, mate. Like, when you're saying gives you an objection, do you mean if he says no? The guy's like, well, yeah. Like, okay. when you say rebuttal, like, what is that? What's the rebuttal? And the guy was like, have you ever done sales in your life? And it was a guy, Simon. And I was like, everyone's looking at this, but I was like, actually, I was like, if you want to know the truth, I just winged it and blagged it because you guys said full training provided, and I thought I was going to get smoked. But he just burst out laughing, mate. The whole room was in stitches. They were all clapping. And he was like, wait till I tell the boss, because I was like, oh, please.
I'll tell you what,
but they were all laughing, mate.
That's the perfect salesman. It's like just blagged his way through. You're perfect man for the job.
Well, that's what a guy Kev said, the manager. He's like, you got past me, man. I believed you. And so that's how it worked. And it was funny because when I was applying for that job, we always have a saying in the army, no bluff too tough. Excuse me. And when I was applying for that job, I kept saying that to myself, no bluff too tough, just go for it, you know. And I ended up there. Hey, so at that point, I was just doing the business development side because that company had expanded to Europe. They bought over companies in Cyprus, Malta, London, all over, right? And they wanted someone to be able to really, you know, a native English speaker to relay to the European side of the world, if you like, exactly what they want. Because sometimes in translation, if you get an Indonesian or Filipino, whatever, they don't tell them exactly what you want because it's lost in translation, you know. So it was kind of to make that more slipstream, if you like. So I was doing that, and then
what was that selling? That was selling financial packages, or
so it's a forex company. So it was basically getting people to come on board, getting big businesses to come on and use your trading platform essentially, and all these other different things that they offered: funded accounts, managed accounts, blah blah blah. So then that was when I became good mates with. That was when I met my mate Zen. And we became really good. That's the guy that I had seen 6 years previously on the video.
So talk us through that interaction of how you came to first know who your boss was.
Right. Yeah, I forgot we had spoken about this. Yeah. So this is insane, guys. And for anyone watching this, I'm telling you, there's going to be people watching this saying bullshit, that didn't happen. But I swear on my son's life, this is 100% true. This happened. So if you want to rewind before, so from me leaving the army and getting to Asia was like 5 or 6 years. So let's just say 5 years. It was in that window. So backtracking to when I was in the army and I'd signed off, right? I'd already left the army, you know, on paper, but I was still in the army. And a guy called Jamie Lamont, who was in my regiment, said to me, he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I have no idea, mate. I'm Fredders, I'm snapped, I want out now. And he's like, have you ever thought about Forex trading? And I said, you know what, Jamie, I've thought about it loads of times, but every time I watch the videos on YouTube, it just fries my brain. I don't know what they're talking about. And shut up! Sorry, my wife's in the background shouting. I was like, I don't know what they're talking about. It just fries my brain, so I can't. So, hold on. Gonna shut that door! My wife's on a bloody FaceTime as well.
Oh,
so
two calls at once.
2 calls at once. what was I saying there? Yeah, so he said to me, "Are you into forex trading?" I said, "Look, mate, I've looked loads of times and it just fries my brain. I don't get it." He then said to me, said, "Look, I've got this course. It's a $5,000 course for these guys who are absolute wizards. They have a course called Beat the Market Maker. It was Steve Morrow and Zen Aldridge, right? And it was a $5,000 course that gave you 4 4-hour videos." And I was like, "Send it across me." He went, "I'll give you it for free." I said, "Oh, please send it." And I literally watched about 40 minutes of it, and it was just like two monkeys in my brain with snare drums. I was like, yeah, I ain't learning this. I can tell you right now, I am not learning this from these videos. So I canned it off. I binned it. I did not watch any more of it. Fast forward, the 5 or 6 years, whatever it was, I'm in this office with this random sales job in Jakarta. And then everyone's Indonesian. I was like the only white guy in the office. And the next minute, another white guy walked in who turned out to be the chief trader of all the different traders in there. And he was an American guy. And I was like, it was kind of like, white friend, just trying to mingle with someone who can speak English. Because Indonesians don't speak English. If you go to Malaysia, Singapore, everyone can speak English. Same in the Philippines, Indonesia, nobody. So it's like, no.
Even in that office, no one was speaking English. It was just your boss.
It was what my wife calls it, Tarzan English, It was like, me home, go. You're like, oh, okay, mate.
Just kind of like smattered words that you can understand.
Exactly. You're not getting a conversation, So I met obviously Zen and we're talking. He's like, "Hey man, what's your name?" I said, "Ryan." He said, "I'm Zen. Nice to meet you." Nothing clicked to me at that point. So when those guys were on that Forex training video, what they would do, because the videos were so long, one guy would talk for like 10-15 minutes, and then like Steve would talk, and then he would go off, and then Zen would talk for 10-15 minutes. So it wasn't like death by PowerPoint. It was quite good how they done it. Anyway, talking to Zen, and he was asking me, he's like, "Have you ever done trading before?" And I was like, "Boss, I've looked at it tons of times and I just don't get it. I'm never going to be able to learn this. It fries my brain." I watched a course before by these two American guys, Steve Morrow and someone, and he's like, "That's me." He's like, "That's my business partner, Steve Morrow and Zen Aldridge." And I was like, no shit.
So crazy.
And at that point, I ran and got my laptop with my hard drive and I banged it on and I was like, so it is. And so the guy that I had watched, 5-6 years prior in the army, and I was like, yeah, can this course off, ended up being my chief trader 5-6 years later when I got this random job in Jakarta.
That's crazy.
There's going to be people thinking that is a bullshit story, but I swear in my son's life that is legit.
Were you able to concentrate when he was right in front of you, or was he still just as boring?
No, he was sound, mate. So it wasn't that the courses were boring. They done it in a really good way and kept your attention, But it just fried my brain at the time, because it wasn't interactive where I could ask questions like, "What do you mean by a pip? What do you mean by a lot? What's an EMA? What does it mean 50 high, 50 low? What are you talking about, mate?" So it was just all jargon that they used that fried my brain, because the course was designed for people who knew about Forex and had already done, shit courses and wanted to really learn how to do it. And that's how it came about. So how I then got into trading was we then became great mates after that. Instantly, we were like fucking top mates. We used to go everywhere together, lunches, beers, whatever. And then about a year and a half into working there, he just walked by my office one day, mate. He's like, "Hey, Rye, you want to learn how to trade?" And I was like, "Fucking right." And he's like, "Monday, you're out of this office and you're in my office." And I literally sat beside him and he taught me how to trade, mate. And I was just like, I've never ever forgotten it. Yeah.
And it became a lot simpler once you had that one-on-one. Like,
dead simple, mate. Dead simple. Once you start, you have to put in the hours. It's not like, "Oh, that's it, I get it now." You still have to put in the hours. And Forex is one of those things where you think you've got it. I've got it now. Everything's clicked. And then the market will smash you. And you're like, "What? The 50 was above the 200, but the candles were below the 50. I should have waited until the candles were above the 50 and the 50's above the 200. These little things that you pick up later."
Yeah.
So it's all about that. And you have to, discipline is key, because the market is designed to make a fast candle movement to make you, it's called FOMO, fear of missing out. So it makes you want to, that candle's flying, makes you want to jump into the trade. And then as soon as it stops flying, it'll wick back and it'll stop you out. And you're like, "What?" And it's designed to do that. So you have to be disciplined.
It's pulling people in so it can nick their money, basically.
Exactly. And people say, "Well, how do you make Forex and how do you make money in Forex?" Well, there's so many people getting trapped with a casino mindset. The disciplined traders are taking all your money, and we're getting all our money from casino players. See that, the casino mindset players is essentially it.
And what sort of margin do you aim for? Are you aiming to just average out like 5% a week, or like?
No, if you give yourself targets, mate, you will flap, because loads of people do. It's just, I was always taught by Zed, mate, if you give yourself a monetary target, it will shaft you, because you'll look at a trade and you'll be like, right, this trade's up 2.30%, 2.30%, let's just say 2.3%, but you're aiming for 5% a day. I'll just let this run to 5. Well, it's probably not going to go to 5. You might it might wick back after that 2.3. So when you're up and you're happy, close 80% of your position, move your stop loss to break even. So it's now a free trade, i.e. you have got no risk at this point. You've already taken 80% of the money that you're up, and you have 20% of your open trade running. If that melts, happy days. If it comes back up and hits your stop loss, who cares? Because it's not a stop loss which you're going to lose money. You've already made 80%, and the stop loss is at break even, so it's a free trade. You haven't lost money. So it's all these different techniques.
Yeah. And so you've gone from like, because I want to come on to your kind of I guess so yeah, and I guess I want to call it like a pseudonym. It's like a new name, it's like a nickname, but like Bule Bolang, because we've had all this development, like evolution from like the army and to pylons, and like through like to forex trading and back into the sand, and like all of this stuff. And now you're a YouTuber with coming up to nearly 1 million subscribers, 700,000 subscribers on YouTube, speaking Indonesian, and just doing this. Like, I was trying to like make a sort of a carryover for what we would understand, because I'm presuming a lot of your following is Indonesian.
Yes, it's like 98%. Yeah.
Like, so, but I was just imagining you're like a Scottish Bear Grylls forex trading, like Indonesian speaking outdoorsman. Like, it's like a crazy mix.
It's mad you said that, because a company called Beach House Production have actually contacted me so many times to go up against Ed Stafford on First Man Out, because they've saw my YouTube. Yeah, so it's pretty nuts. COVID obviously kept haltering that, so that's why I didn't end up doing it. But yeah.
So let's just go through that. So from the forex trading, you thought, I love forex trading, but I need to be outdoors. I need to do more stuff outdoors. Like, how was that evolution?
I'll tell you what, it's a good question, mate. This is exactly what happened. So I love trading forex. Financially, I'm very nice now. I'm not back where I'm panicking about bills and stuff and blah blah blah. It's not. Once you can trade forex, it's not a hard job. Once you can master the stress, it's then not stressful. So I've been doing it for years now. I'm fine. What happened was I went through this really weird phase of my life, and maybe ex-military guys watching this will understand it. Even though my life at that point was what I would deem amazing. We were going to Bali at weekends, and just coming back and chilling. And it was just like this. My life was fantastic when I was looking. If I looked out and looking in, I was like, my life is fantastic. I went through this phase, mate. I was waking up like every day with such a strong feeling. I could not get rid of it, where I literally wanted to can my whole life here and go back and rejoin the army and do my final time. And I knew it was stupid. Like, I would literally wake up and talk to myself and be like, don't be so stupid. And I knew I was never going to do it in a million years. But the point was, I kept waking up every day, and the feeling was so strong. I was like, I really want to rejoin the army. And I knew it was ridiculous, mate.
What was that? Do you think that was, you wanted the adrenaline again, or you wanted the brotherhood again? Or like, what was it?
Mate, I think the brotherhood, mate. I think it was the camaraderie with all the lads. And I really think it was that, mate. Yeah. I don't know what it was. I was just dying to join,
Just like instinctive.
So the evolution into YouTube was, I didn't even try and become a YouTuber. I just said to my wife, you know what? This is becoming really annoying for me. What I'm going to do every second weekend, I'm just going to bugger off into the jungle, and I'll just go wild camping in the jungle. I'll go to the mountains. I'll do a bit of bushcraft. I'll build bamboo shelters and sleep in them overnight and all this. And I'll get this army shit out of my system. That was the whole mentality. And obviously, when I'd done that, I recorded a couple of videos on my phone. Like, this is amazing. There was like fireflies at night time in the middle of the jungle. I was in my hammock. I turned my lamp off. It was just fireflies everywhere. I was like, oh, this is just a life. I found a rock pool the next day. I jumped in and swam around. Like, this is amazing. So I showed one of my mates. He's like, where were you last weekend? I never saw you. I said, I was in the jungle, like wild camping. And he's like, what? I showed him the video, and he's like, right, get that on Facebook, mate. He's like, this is the type of shit I would watch until like 2, 3 in the morning, lying in bed on my phone. He's like, get that on YouTube. He's like, people love to watch that. And at that point, I hadn't. There was a few people along, as it transpired, I'd done it for a while longer, and then more people kept saying that to me. So I thought, bugger it, I'll bang it on YouTube. started putting it on YouTube, mate. 1 week I had 71 subscribers. By week 3, I met this other random Indonesian YouTuber who we became good mates. And I didn't know who he was at the time, but apparently he was really famous. And he had like 1.2 million subscribers. And he was like, can you do survival? I was like, yeah, I can do survival, mate. He's like, okay, next week when we get back from, we were at like a little 1,000 Island retreat thing. He's like, when we get back from this, text me, I'll come and meet you. We'll go to the jungle and I'll make survival content with you. I'll try and help your channel. Mate, so the both of us posted the same video, right? I had 71 subscribers at this point. He posted his video and got like 900,000 views. I posted my version of the video, but because people had already saw me on his channel, people were flocking to see who I was. My video gets 6 million views.
What?
And I was like, what? And he was texting me like essentially being like, you wee dick is like, I've got 900,000, you get 6 million. What the fuck? But it was all because of him, you know. I can't take anything away. It was all because of him. He gave me that traffic for people to notice me in the first place. Yeah. And mate, a week later, I had 150,000 subscribers. Whoa. And I was, mate, every time I looked at my phone, I would look at my phone in the morning. I had like 5,000 more. I'd look at my phone at lunchtime, another 5,000. I'd look at my phone when I woke up the next day, another 15, 20,000. I was like, this is insane. The traffic coming through. God, me was wild. And that's how it started. And then I started picking up like big sponsors, like Insta360 cameras. They're one of my big sponsors. North Face Indonesia, Nature Hike, G-Shock, Coros GPS watches, Kawasaki have just sponsored me last month. They've given me like a couple of KLX motocross, and they've given me like a Kawasaki Ninja to do like city vlogs, which is quite cool, and KLX motorbikes for the jungle videos.
Mate, that's insane. So that, because you mentioned when you moved to Jakarta, they were like, you go into a mall, everyone's super friendly, people want to take photos with you because you're like foreign, I guess, and you're like, they're just not used to seeing these people.
They're not. Yes,
that must have been a huge element of it. Like you were so different to what this YouTuber had been putting on, and like bang, it just exploded.
Yes. So here's the thing, right? Have you ever heard of a wild animal called a Luwak? And it's the famous animal that makes Luwak coffee.
Yeah, I have only heard of it. Well, I'd heard of Luwak coffee, but then I saw in some of your videos your Luwak on your shoulders, and so then it clicked with me. But only since kind of watching your videos and stuff had it clicked.
Yeah, so there's an animal. Some people call it cat poop coffee. They're not cats at all, but they're called Asian Palm civet cats. It's like the English term. I don't know why, because they're not cats at all. They're actually civets, which are genets, so they're actually closer related to a hyena than what they are a dog or a cat.
Wow.
But I've rescued one of them. Try and cut a long story short, someone had broke her legs and blah blah blah, and I saw her on the street. I was like, give me that thing. She was tiny, mate, yelping and wheeling. I got her straight to a vet's, and at the time I was like, what the fuck is this? I had no idea. It was so small, its ears were still forked, you couldn't even tell if it was a kitten, a puppy, whatever. And the vet explained also what it is. It's a civet. And he's like, yeah, she's index, mate. You know, she's pretty much going to die. And I went, well, look, I ain't going to put her to sleep for a couple of broken legs and a broken jaw. I know she's a bit of pain, but if you just tell me what to do, I had to clean her dressings 3 times a day and hand feed her with a syringe and blah, blah, blah. I says, mate, just tell me what to do, what I need to feed this type of animal. I'll do it daily. If she dies, you know, a bit of Dolph Lundgren. If she dies, she dies. So yeah, she ended up pulling through, and now me and her are like best mates. Wow. I don't recommend it as a pet for anyone watching. If you Google it later, they are ferocious like a honey badger, and anyone other than me who goes near her will get their hand taken off. She is wild. She is super vicious.
It looked like, it reminded me of a bigger ferret kind of thing. Like it's kind of like
same kind of family, mate. Yeah, like kind of pine marten ferret, you know, badger kind of mix. It's weird. So, you know, without kind of digressing, she's part of my story as well. So essentially what you've got on YouTube is this white guy with a big British Army backpack surviving in the jungle with a Luwak on top of his bag, you know, because I used to take it to the jungle because me and her are like this, you know, and I just used to let her run around the jungle, and she would never go far. She'd run around and jump back on me and all that. So people were like, oh my God, because people know these animals are vicious. You know, people do have them as pets here, but people know they are turbo vicious and like just don't go near it. And then, you know, there's a white guy walking around the jungle with one on his shoulder and it's like licking his face, you know what I mean? So,
it's such a striking image. Like I remember seeing it and I was like, what in the hell is going on here? It's like cross between Dr. Dolittle and Bear Grylls as well. It's like, Because in one of the videos, you've
Yeah.
got like a little parakeet as well in one of your
Yeah,
latest
I have a little yellow sided conure parrot. Ollie, he is amazing. He's in the room over there. He is amazing, and I literally take him everywhere. With Chelsea, it's harder now because she was fine up until 3 years old, and then she hit sexual maturity, and then she became ferociously aggressive to like my cameraman, my driver, and I was like, yeah, I can't bring her out anymore. It's just too dangerous. So I do take her out, like to the park and stuff myself if no one else is there. But I just can't take her on the trips anymore. It's just far too dangerous.
You
If a
have her
kid
on a
comes up
little.
and tries to clap her,
You have her on a little lead or anything, or like?
yes, well, if I was near people, I would put her on a little harness and lead so I can pull her back so that someone doesn't get hurt, you know. But if it's just her and I, then I just let her off and let her run around, climb trees and whatever.
Wow. That's crazy.
My parrot, people are now engrossed in my parrot. Ollie, me and him are like this. Again, I had him since I was like 3 weeks old. One of my mates just gave me him and I had to hand feed him, and then I had him since he couldn't fly. So because, I mean, that's literally my Forex workstation in the corner there.
Oh wow.
So as I was, working, I now work from home Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. As I was working, I would literally just have this little parrot on my hand the whole time. So we just made an amazing bond. Now I take him to the jungles, volcanoes, mountains, like rivers, camping, you name it. He just comes on my shoulder everywhere I go. He's brilliant.
It's amazing. I think like it's super important if you're going to be working with animals like that you'd had those experiences with them when they were young. Like you basically nurse them. You're basically their mother, or father, I guess, father and mother. Like you're their life giver, so they're hopefully not going to bite the hand that feeds them.
Exactly. And Chelsea's the same. Chelsea never bites me. She bites plain, but she's absolutely fine with me. Yeah. And Ollie just comes everywhere. We even went to this like little village deep in the middle of the jungle where like we were the first outsiders to stay there. And I had Ollie, my parrot, and even the villagers were like, "What? This is amazing! We've never seen a guy with a parrot." Like we had to go on a motorbike for like an hour through the jungle, and Ollie was on my shoulder the whole time. I thought maybe this bike's going to scare him, the noise, and he's going to fly away, but he was just on my shoulder the whole time.
That's amazing, because that was the video that I most recently watched when you go into the jungle and you're staying with that community, and that bike ride with Ollie on your shoulder is just ridiculous. Like, but like, I wanted to ask you about that experience because I saw these people in the jungle and they're climbing that tree. Like anyone who wants to go and watch this, it's a great video to watch. But this guy's climbing a tree with just his big toes. Like, can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So what they do is it's called gula aren. Gula means sugar, and aren is just a type of sugar. I'm pretty sure you get it back home. So gula aren sugar actually comes from a tree, and they have to go up and like they chop into this part of the tree, and it comes up through the tree. So they'll do that in like the mornings, and they'll put like this big bamboo pole, like they use it as a carry pole, and then they have like a funnel going in, and as the sap, it's essentially this sap from the tree comes up and out. It's a sugary taste, and it just goes in and it fills up, and when they go back at lunchtime to collect, they'll take the full one and put in. They have to do more cut. You have to do fresh cuts because the tree essentially heals itself. So they'll do fresh cuts and put a fresh bamboo pole there, which is an open top, but obviously it's still bamboo closed bottom. And then it just fills up again. So they don't actually climb up the tree. Like this guy was about 78 years old. What they do is they have like these long bamboo poles, right? And they put one at the side of the tree, and they just cut these tiny little holes this size in the bamboo, and they're on their bare feet, and they stick their big toe inside the hole. So it's essentially this part of their toe that they're climbing on, and their full body weight on it is climbing up this one bamboo thing on their big toe. And it's just like, we tried it, mate, and it is agony. I mean, you get one.
Did you get very far? Did you get very far?
Mate, only got 2-3 steps up it, and I was like, index. It's excruciatingly painful.
It looked excruciating, but he looked like it's just absolutely nothing for him.
Yeah, they've been doing it since kids, mate. So I mean, I think maybe the nerve endings in their toes just gone, and they just don't feel it anymore, you know. But
it's like a climber who's like really used to climbing with their fingers. They can like hold on one hand or hold on two fingers.
Yes, exactly it, mate.
Yeah,
exactly
and what was the drink like?
It was beautiful, mate. It's hard to explain, you know, to Westerners, because there's a flower over here called the pandan flower, And if you've ever been to Asia and you've even just smelt a pandan flavor, or you've had like iced tea pandan flavor, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're a Westerner who hasn't been to Asia, you'll be like, what the hell is a pandan, you know?
Yeah.
So it was literally like just drinking like a kind of fresh, non-citrus lemonade, like the color of lemonade. You know, when you get real lemonade, it's that kind of cloudy color. So it's that color, but it doesn't taste like lemon. It tastes like this kind of really sweet pandan. Maybe if you could relate it to what sweetness, like lychee, if anyone said a lychee fruit, kind of like a lychee, similar to that, mate. Yeah,
Mexico, you got something called guayaba, and guayaba is like it's you can't describe the taste, but it's like slightly flowery, really sweet. That's and it's slightly carbonated. You said it was like fizzy.
It was fizzy, mate. Yeah, that's right. So I was surprised by that. It was like soda water, you know. It was literally like a soda water. I was like, "Wow, this is fizzy, tingly, sweet." It was beautiful. And the key, if you didn't put these leaves, I'm sorry, I forgot the name of it. But there's these particular leaves that they use from the jungle, and if they don't put the leaves in it, that gula aram will be destroyed. It will be dead within an hour. You can't drink it, or it's going to give you like really bad gas in your belly, and you're going to have to spew and stuff. But if you put these leaves in, it then kind of keeps it good for a good 24 hours, which then gives the villagers time to like go through the process of kind of boiling it and fermenting it and blah, blah, blah. And then they turn it into like a kind of consistency of honey sugar. And they do that every single day, and they have it with their tea and coffee. So it's like natural sugar for them.
And this was the first time they'd had an outsider stay overnight in their village. Like, were you well received? Were they happy to see you? Or were they a bit suspicious?
So what happened was I had collabed with one of my good friends who's another YouTuber, Dede Inoan. His channel's Wild, and he's super famous in that region all over Indonesia, but particularly that region, Cianjur, because he's born and bred in Cianjur. So everywhere you go, people are like, Dede. You might get one or two people that notice me kind of thing, but everyone will notice Dede. So I mean, he's super famous. And we stopped off at this little kind of, it's called a warung. It's like this little cafe type hut in the middle of nowhere, and they have them spread out everywhere, so you can stop in, you can get noodles with boiled egg and coffee and tea and coconuts and all this kind of stuff. It's essentially a little roadside cafe called a warung, and we were in there, and people were all sitting eating, and we were saying to them, guys, we're looking for a camping area for tonight. Do you know anywhere we can camp and like obviously record some content for YouTube and blah blah blah? And this guy was like, here, and he's like, I know this. It's called Kampung Adet. Kampung means village, and Adet is kind of a village name given to, you get villages, but then you get Kampung Adet, which is a village who they don't really live like everyday people. They have electricity, but it's electricity from a little bamboo wind turbine that they've made themselves. You know, it's not from the grid. They get their own water. They use the chicken poop to soil their plants for fertilization and all this kind of stuff. So they live off the land. Supernatural, mate. Yeah, it's amazing. And he was like, look, I know this kampong. He's like, nobody ever goes there from the outside. Like, we go down and visit them, but no outsiders, like no YouTubers been there, no white guy has ever been there. It's about a 2.5 hour walk, but we can take you in the bikes in like 40 minutes to an hour. We were like, yeah, let's do it. You up for that? We're like, yeah, let's do it. So we got all the gear from the back of the car and onto bags, and then we just jumped on the back of their like motorbikes and stuff.
Wow.
But when we got there, they were super happy to see us.
That's the thing. So they weren't sort of suspicious. They were very hospitable, and they were like, yeah, come in. My house is your house, all of this stuff.
That's it. Honestly, see anyone who's been to Indonesia, you'll know what I'm talking about. I've been to 67 countries in the world. I've met tons of beautiful, nice, welcoming, friendly people in every country, Turkey, Cyprus, everywhere. But Indonesian hospitality and friendliness is just on another level. It's something that every country on the planet can learn from. Anywhere you go in Indonesia, if you're a foreigner, Indonesian, people will offer you food and drinks. Or like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to stay tonight. They'll be like, yeah, stay here, mate, stay here. It's like, can you imagine being in Glasgow, meeting a random guy and be like, yeah, just come and stay in my pad, mate. You'd be like, fuck off. It just wouldn't happen. Here, people will offer you to stay. Yeah, come and stay with us, no problem, no problem. Like, they are the nicest people on the planet.
And it must have been pretty pivotal for you to be able to speak the language. They must be amazed by that.
Well, how that came about, my first 2 years, I didn't bother learning because I wasn't sure if I was going to stay here or not. And eventually, years later, when I started YouTube, my mate Panji Padolang, the really famous guy who helped me in the beginning to, you know, boost my channel, he said, he's like, mate, if you really want to hit the Indonesian market, you're going to have to speak Bahasa in your videos because they don't speak English. And
what's the language? Bahasa.
Bahasa.
Okay.
Bahasa. So you get Bahasa. The word Bahasa just means language, actually. So they say Bahasa Indonesia, and then you get Bahasa Malayu, which is Malaysian. So those two languages are similar. It's like someone who can speak Scottish Gaelic and Irish Gaelic. It's different, but if they talk to each other, they can understand each other. It's the same with Indonesian and Malaysian. The languages are different, but slightly similar. They can understand each other.
Yeah. Okay.
So he said you're going to have to learn it. And I could basically order a Coca-Cola at that point. You know, it was just awful, my Bahasa. So how I got around that, I said, right, I'll make all my videos. I'll speak the tiny little Bahasa that I can't speak. I'll then speak English, but I'll do the rest of it in voiceover. So I would then get home, I would edit the videos, and then I would like stop and start. I'd get to 3 minutes in the video, stop, write what I want to say in English, and my wife is Indonesian. She would then write below it how you would say that in Bahasa. And the good thing with Indonesian language, you know, even although the language is different, the letters are all the same, so you can read it. You know, it's not like trying to read Vietnamese or read Thai or whatever. So it was very easy that way. So I used to read it, doing the voiceovers, and then because I'd done that for like a year and a bit, I then just was able to speak the language, and that's how it came about. That I could speak Indonesian.
That's amazing. Because like when I'm watching your videos, you're actually chopping and changing between like Bahasa and English, and then like sometimes the subtitles are in English and you're speaking Bahasa, and then sometimes it's in Bahasa and sometimes they're in English.
Sometimes in English, yeah.
It's like it's kind of mind blowing. I'm not surprised that you have like this super wide audience of kind of Indonesians there that are like kind of a bit blown away by that.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I know guys here that have been here for 17, 18 years, and you're lucky if they can say hello in Bahasa, which is hello anyway, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they're like, yeah, I can't speak a word of it. So, yeah, Indonesians do really appreciate if they see a foreigner. See, even if your Bahasa is terrible, they really love to see a foreigner trying, you know? It's not a country where, like, maybe in Glasgow, if a foreigner's trying to speak English and he's not very good, people be like, yeah, your English is shit, mate, and they'll slag him. Like, people won't slag you over here for being poor. They really love the fact that you're trying to learn their language. So that's the kind of culture difference as well.
I bet. And the other video that, you know, was sad in many ways was this. I can't remember the name of the beach, but it's a beach that has just been absolutely dumped with plastic, and it's 100,000 tons of plastic, maybe more. I guess more since these sandbags. I mean, this was 2 or 3 years ago. You filmed that first video. Can you tell us about that beach and what's the state of it now?
Horrific, mate. I don't know what it's like today, but I can tell you what it was like the first time I went, and then the second time we went back. So the first time we went, it was just like you cannot imagine it. It was a landfill site on the beach, is the only way I can explain it. You were jumping up and down on trash, and it was all the way in the sea.
How did that come to be there? Do you know?
So there's loads of things, mate. So we have when it's the rainy season, like now, we have loads of flash floods. All the rivers get flooded, so it's all the people just throw their trash in the rivers here and stuff, and all the shit just goes down the rivers, goes out to the sea, and the tide just brings it back in, and it just mounts up and mounts up and mounts, and it comes from all different islands as well. We've even got stuff there from like the Faroe Islands, from Iceland. It's just wild. So
these are like sea currents that are washing stuff up there.
Yeah. And it was easily 100,000 tons of trash. So it's not easy for them to clean it. So it's not like, why haven't they cleaned it? It ain't easy, mate. It's a very inaccessible. I mean, when we say beach, it's a coastline. You know, it's very inaccessible. You're going to need landing crafts with caterpillar trucks, caterpillar diggers, and all sorts to get there. So it is not an easy feat, and that's why it hasn't been cleaned even to yet. We went back the second time round, and there's a big project to grow mangroves, and the local guy who got the contract for that didn't want the company sponsoring it to see all the trash, so he literally used money from it to fill plastic sandbags that were like this size each with sand, lay it on top, so when the tide comes over, it looks flat, and then put like little bits of sand on top. So we were back and we were like, how did they do this? Like, no way this is being cleaned up. And then we put our hands under the sand, picked it up, and we were like, sandbags? And then by that point, this plastic sandbags has already started deteriorating as well. So we were just like, no. And then we got loads of people involved to go back, and the guy who'd done it admitted to us, yeah, I'd done this. You have to be careful what you say in Indonesia. You can get arrested for telling the truth. So the one guy admitted that, yeah, I'd done this. And we were like, why? He's like, for the mangroves. We were like, what does plastic trash have to do with mangroves? Yeah, plastic helps the mangroves grow. And we were like, what planet are you on? So yeah, and then,
is that true, or is that just like
it's not true at all. It's just tapped in the head.
So they genuinely believe that plastic is
that guy
guy
genuinely believed that. Yeah. So it's just nuts, mate. So long story short, if I can say that, because we have to be careful what we say here.
Sure.
I literally got to a point, I was just like, you can't help people that don't want to help themselves. I was like, if you guys are just going to trash your own beach, I ain't wasting my time trying to help you guys clean it up, you know. So I chinned it off, essentially.
For sure. And the thing that was also fascinating was that, you know, because I saw you wanted to take a boat slightly further upstream or deeper into further away from the shoreline, and the boat guy was slightly cagey about actually taking you. He didn't want to take you.
Yeah, because what happened? So this is actually a good story. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about that. So when you go up there was tons and tons and tons of factories each side of the river, and there was no filtration. They were just pumping all the shit into the rivers. In it, there was like red shit flying into rivers, blue shit flying into rivers. They just did not give a shit. And so the guy was like, I don't know if you can record up here, because a lot of these things are by big rich people, and rich means you have power in Indonesia. Being right doesn't mean you're right. You know, it's all about the dough. You have to be very careful what you say and do. So when we were going up there, they were just pumping tons in. So we saw that. We had to be kind of careful recording that. And even when you record it, you're like, do I post this? Like, am I going to get in the shit for posting this? Because even if you post that and highlight it, the people with power will pay and get you in the shit. And it's like, so you have to be very careful. It's not worth it, mate. But what happened was, government people did get involved, and a guy, Kieran Kelly from Rio, who I was working with on that, he has a company called Rio, Restoring Integrity to the Oceans. That's him. He is still running all that recycling stuff, but I just found it out. I was like, yeah, I'm not arsed, mate, I'm finding this out. But he is still running with it. He's putting these big, massive, I call them fishing nets, but they're not. They're like plastic trash nets in those rivers now to stop all the plastic trash going down. Even though that beach hasn't been cleaned, no more is getting down there just now, which is fantastic.
Okay, that's good.
And the chemical factories, what I previously heard and saw, the government, the local government, I should say, had went down and shut down all those factories. So that was fantastic.
That's really good.
Whether they are still shut down or not, I have no idea. They possibly could be, but I have no idea if they're now back up and running. Sometimes that happens. I can't comment because I really don't know what happened. But the positive side, action was taken and it did get shut down. So that was quite good.
That's amazing, because that's the two sides of Bali or Indonesia that you hear of. Is one, the beauty of the place, but then at the same time is the amount of pollution and trash on the other side, especially on beaches.
Yeah. It's unreal, mate. It is. And certain, I mean, there's plenty of beautiful beaches, but it's like all the trash just seems to get brought in at certain tides to certain beaches. You know, people are up in arms about the ones in Bali, and it's just because they go viral. When you see it, you're like, yeah, it's trashy, but that is nothing compared to this beach. Why is it this viral? Because I mean, if it went international, mate, it definitely breaks international laws. You know, it's like,
so what's the name of that beach?
Tanjung Burung, it's called
Tanjung Burung. And what's the district? Do you know, like?
Yes, it's called Tangerang. So it's on the island of Java. So Jakarta is here, and then it's actually this part, which I don't think is classed as Jakarta. It's classed as Tangerang. Wow. Just remember Tangerine, Tangerang.
Okay,
that's how I remember it.
And I'll let you go in a minute, mate, because I know you've got to be up at 4 a.m. tomorrow, and it must be nearly 11 where you are at the moment.
It is me. No worries.
Yeah. So, but you know, and the other thing about that beach is that there's prawn farmers, and there's people farming food on that water.
Mate. And after it, we even got reports. We then found out that people, you know, with genuine skills in that field of like testing water samples, testing the soil, they had actually been out. Indonesians had actually been out there, sent these massive reports to the government about, right, you cannot eat the fish in this area. It is highly, it's not fit for human consumption. but yet you've got prawn farmers selling to like all the rest of us, like that. Like literally, this is how bad it was. The little kind of water fields, if that's what you want to call them, that had like different segments of prawns in them. It's all broken up like a farm. They were made out of mixing the plastic trash and soil, and it's like, what? Like that, they made the walls all around about it out of the plastic trash and soil, and it's like mad. This is just, you cannot believe this.
Absolutely.
So the amount of microplastics and all that food that everyone's eating in restaurants is just unbelievable.
It's crazy. I mean, I've kind of stayed away from a lot of prawns and seafood and stuff because of that. I stick to a lot of beef and a bit of chicken and some like salmon, but I mean, it's you struggle to get away from pollution now and plastic toxicity.
Absolutely.
Like, it's crazy. So what's coming up for you in the next month or so? What can we expect in terms of YouTube and projects you're working on?
So my trading will just keep carrying on. We teach people how to trade on the Telegram and blah, blah, blah. We have that going on. I trade the managed accounts over here. We have prop firm stuff coming up. So we're now doing the prop firms where people do challenges. And because there are a lot of good traders out there sitting in their mum's bedroom, but they just don't have the funds. And it's like, well, look, if you can actually trade, you can do, depending on the amount of the size of account you want, if it's a 50 grand account, 100 grand account, 200 grand account, if you do the test, maybe it's going to cost you, let's say £1,000 for a 100 grand account, for example. You pay £1,000 to take the test. We put you through this test over the next 4 weeks. You have a certain drawdown that you cannot beat. You have a certain amount of profit that you have to reach at a certain amount of time, 6 weeks or whatever. And if they do it, then they will be funded with a larger account of real money that they can trade. We keep 20% of the profits and they keep 80% of the profits. So it's kind of to help good traders get into it.
Wow.
So we'll be launching that in February. That goes live.
Where will people find that?
I'll be posting all my links, essentially, all my Bule Bolang, Facebook, Instagram, YouTubes and stuff. I'll be doing that there. What else? YouTube wise, I've got loads of big things. So I've got this car company that sponsored me. They specialize in like doing up. I've got an outdoor Mitsubishi pickup truck, and they specialize on like the imported like roof tents, car tents, and all this, and modifying vehicles. So they've now sponsored me to like kit up my car with all this really cool stuff. I got sponsored by Kawasaki 2 weeks ago. They've already given me like 2 KLXs, a Kawasaki Ninja, and like one of the old retros. So I'll be doing like moto vlogs. And on my Facebook, I do like motorcycle vlogs around the city, and I also do like food reviews. So I got like little food stalls on the side of the road, and I take my little parrot as well. And we like do food reviews and like these little, instead of restaurants, we do them like side streets, like coconuts and fruit salads and just all this kind of random Indonesian food that people don't get back home, so you can see it. And they're just short, little 7 to 10 minute videos on Facebook, and I do them in English. My YouTube video is like extreme adventure, paragliding, hiking volcanoes, mountains, abseiling waterfalls, like really adventure stuff. And for that side of it, I'm going to be including extras this year with Kawasaki. So there's like volcano routes you can do through the jungle, and it's like a 3-hour drive from like one volcano through to another major city. So I'm going to be going through the wild jungle on the Kawasaki KLXs on that, and then like camping halfway through, and then meeting my driver at the other side and all this kind of stuff. So I'll be integrating that into it.
Mate, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit jealous.
Thanks.
So where people can find that by just typing in Bule Bolang, Bule, and then on YouTube,
Bolang. Yeah, Bule Bolang. So it's Bule Bolang. So in case you're wondering what that means, in Indonesia, they call specifically white foreigners Bule. So if you're a foreigner from Ghana, Jamaica, whatever, you're just called a foreigner. But if you're a white foreigner, they'll call you Bule. Pardon me. It's actually some Bule white guys find it racist. I don't care. I find it funny. Apparently, where it comes from is back in the day of Dutch colonialism and blah blah blah. Obviously, the Dutch were here. Their skin was pale white, and the Indonesians had like water buffalo, and they're obviously grey. But there is a type of water buffalo that is pale white in skin, which is called Bule. So they would just say, "Oh yeah, he looks like Bule." This white guy looks like a Bule, and that's where it came from, and it's just stuck.
Oh wow!
So Bule stands for white guy, and Bolang is it's like 2 Indonesian words which have been chopped and stuck together, which is like Indonesian slang. So bocah means kid, and Petualang means adventure. So Bule Bolang means the white adventure kid. Essentially, that's what the channel means.
Epic, epic. Mate, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to let you get at least 5 hours sleep, or maybe 4.5. But mate, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of your adventures, and hopefully get you back on the show again soon.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks a lot, Finley. Thanks for having me, mate.
It's a pleasure, and thanks everyone for listening.